In this case study, I want to alert you as to how much collateral is needed for the various finance sources that we are including in a finance plan, and how that will impact how much collateral is left for the equity investor at the end. Let's take a look at the movie. This is what you get. We're going to have a finance plan, but that has all the normal structures, with pre-sales in the tier 1 and tier 2 sections. We have a waterfall that has a Rent a Studio deal with A24. We're also doing a direct-to-consumer deal as well as a sale to HBO. So let's take a closer look for this movie. The budget is $7.7 million. 45% of that is allocated to the above the line. 55% of the budget is allocated to the below the line. The finance elements include pre-sales, of course, a senior loan, a junior loan, production incentive, non-recoupable finance sources, deferments, and equity. So let's start with the sales estimates and pre-sales. Our ask projections, which is the ask column in our sales estimates. Sales estimates usually have two columns, ask and take. Ask column is $7,203,350. The take column is the column the financiers and banks and investors and really anyone would look at to decide what collateral is available to recoup the investment or loan and to decide the risk profile assumptions. So here in our finance plan, we have pre-sales to the tier 1 territory, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the UK, France, and Spain, totaling $2,110,000. The discount the bank will apply here is 65%. The discount has to do with the fact that some of these sales are below take. And when you have that, sometimes the discount is a little more aggressive. The tier 1 territory, Middle East, is selling at $85,000, discounted at 50%. The senior loan will be obviously including the pre-sale loan, but also the gap is kept at 10% of the budget. Again, has to do with sales estimates coming in kind of all over the place, which is what we want. The interest is 12% per year. We have two-year term, means that 1 year interest is deducted on closing and the balance is applied in the waterfall. The loan fee is 2.5% of the gross loan amount. We have a junior loan of 10% of the budget. 15% interest is deducted at closing. 10% premium is applied in the waterfall. The production incentive offers us 15% for the above the line portion of the budget, 25% for the below the line portion of the budget, and the lender is charging us 15% on closing. The non-recoupable finance sources include music publishing, branding, crowdfunding. For music publishing, we get 1.5% of the budget. This brand sponsorship gives us 5% of the budget, and the advertising agency charges a 15% fee on that upfront. We're raising 7% of the budget in crowdfunding, but we've used $100,000 during the development phase. Our deferments come from post-production visual effects and our director. The post-production house and the visual effects house each defer 2.5% of the budget, expecting a 10% premium in the waterfall on that. The director defers 1.5% of the budget, expecting a 20% profit participation. The equity finances the balance under industry standard terms. Let's look at our revenues. We have $5 million in box office. AMC charges 35% of that. So 35% of the box office ticket sales will go to the exhibitor, to the theater owner. That's AMC. The balance is the producer share. And on that, A24 charges a 25% distribution fee in this Rent a Studio deal. We have a P&A investor giving us $1 million. They're charging us 20% on that. We're going to place the movie with Amazon Prime for consumers to download it at $9.99 per download, and we have 189,897 people doing that. We're going to sell HBO the television rights at 10% of the budget. The international rights are deriving from our pre-sales plus the unsold rights at the take level. The international distribution fees are 17.5% on international sales and 10% on the deal with HBO. That is the US fee. The expenses include, of course, a senior loan, the second-year interest, both of which is recouped outside of the collection account. We have a collection agent, distribution charges, deferments plus the applicable premiums, the junior loan plus premiums, and the equity plus premiums. The profit pool assigns 20% to the lead actor, 10% to the co-producer. The director gets 20%, and the equity gets the industry standard profit participation. So here we see our sales estimates for this is what you get. Psychological thriller PG-13. The estimated but not yet funded budget is $7.7 million. So you see here a range for the take price on in the first column. And that is a range that I share with you just to give you an idea of what each territory could charge or is priced at when it comes to the take territory for a movie like this. Now, this is very much dependent on the script, the talent, the genre, the packaging, I mean everything. So this could vary quite a bit, but I'm giving you a basic range so that you can get a feeling, and really just that, of what these territories could look like when we ask them for pricing for a minimum guarantee license fee that is paid to us on a movie. So, you know, you see here United Kingdom is, for example, priced at 7% of the budget, right? This could also be 5%, it could also be 9%, depending on what the movie is. It also very much depends on if the movie is a theatrical release or not. And if it is a theatrical release, these numbers can sometimes even go up. So this is kind of a range that is really just for you to get a feeling for what it could look like for a commercial movie that is being theatrically released and is a movie that the marketplace is accepting. So let's take a look at where we are. We have our international ask at 7,203,350 and the take at 5,762,680. The US is not in here because we're planning a release, a studio release, so we're not estimating what the US would look like. Normally we would have a number here, but given the way we are releasing this movie, that's not the case. So here we're going to see our sales estimates in connection with the pre-sales that have been concluded. So the pre-sales that we've made in a few territories here are $350,000 with the Australia and New Zealand buyer for the territory Australia and New Zealand. So you see 350,000 is kind of between the take price of 308,000 and the ask price of 385,000. So it's kind of in that range. South Africa is sold at $75,000. The range that we had between take and ask is 77,000 for take, 96,250 for ask. So this is slightly under what our take would be. The United Kingdom was sold for $525,000. Our range is take 539,000 and ask 673,700. So also the UK is sold slightly under what the take price was. The pre-sales for France comes in at $680,000. The take was 616 and the ask was 770,000. So this is in the range. The Middle East was sold for 85,000. Take was at 77 and ask is at 96,250. So also this is in the range. Spain was sold for 480,000. The take was 462,000. The ask is 577,500. So this too is in the range. And the reason why I mention this is if we have certain sales that are below take, when we take the sales estimates and pre-sales to the bank, they will take that into consideration, and the terms will reflect that there are certain deals that are below take. So altogether we have pre-sales of $2,195,000, and we have unsold rights in the take category of $3,606,680. So the international revenues total will show $5,801,680. The revenue total is important when you run your waterfall because you need to add those two things together rather than applying percentages, which is what we normally do. And you see here that we have again left the US out because we will deal with the US as a rent-a-studio deal. Altogether, we have now generated in the sales for this film $5,801,680 as mentioned, and we're going to put that in our waterfall in a moment when we structure our finance plan. So let's take a look at our finance plan. We have a budget of 7.7 million. The above the line portion of that is 3,465,000. The below the line and post-production portion of that is $4,235,000. The strike price that we are left with when we close our financing is $7,199,500 because we are going to remove budgeted line items that will be deferred. We're going to get into those in a moment. The international sales estimates projected our pre-sales, actually they defined our pre-sales and then projected take revenues, which we are combining to $5,801,680,000. That reflects about 75.35% of the budget. We will not put a US estimate here because we have a rent-a-studio deal and we will deal with that in the revenue schedule because we know that we're going to do a rent-a-studio deal. We're not going to put an estimate in here. There's no need for that. So the pre-sales altogether were $2,195,000. That's about 30.49% of the budget. The down payment that was paid by the distributors when they did the pre-sales with us was $439,000. That payment is held by the sales agent until all the funding is raised and is being released to us. The balance due to be paid by the distributors to us is $1,756,000 on delivery of the film, so when the film is finished. The senior loan is broken up in a pre-sale loan and a gap loan. The pre-sale loan is broken up in Tier 1 and Tier 2 territories. Our Tier 1 territories are combined $2,110,000. The bank will apply a 65% discount, giving us $1,426,750. The down payment that we have to deduct for this is $422,000. The Tier 2 territories will also have a down payment deducted of 20%, so they are discounted at 50%. The pre-sale loan then is combined between Tier 1 and Tier 2. The gap loan is capped at 10% simply because we have certain territories that are coming in with pre-sales under the take. So that's why the bank is capping our 10% gap loan here. And we will have a 12% interest applied for year one. We're going to pay the other 12% in the waterfall, and we have a loan fee of the loan amount being applied at 2.5%. So here's the rest of our finance plan. We have a junior loan of 10% of the budget, that is $770,000. The loan fees in connection with that loan are 15%. They are deducted, leaving us with $654,500. to cover a portion of our budget. The incentive loan is comprised of an above the line and below the line eligibility amount. 15% of the above the line is eligible, 25% of the below the line is eligible, leaving us with a gross incentive of 38% or $2,954,875. The lender will apply a fee of 15% that is deducted. So our net amount that we have available to cover the budget is $2,511,644. We have some non-recoverable finance sources comprised of a music publishing buyout, brand sponsorship, crowdfunding, and the music publishing buyout is 1.5% of the budget, $115,500. The brand sponsorship is 5% of the budget, $385,000. The ad agency charges 15% of that, $57,750, leaving us with $327,250. Crowdfunding, we were able to raise 7% of the budget, that is $539,000, but we used $100,000 of that during the development phase. So what we have available right now at closing is $439,000. Altogether, our non-recoverable finance sources here in this section come to $881,750. And then we have some deferments. The post-production and the visual effects house each defer 2.5% of the budget, that's $192,500. The director defers 1.5% of the budget, that is $115,500. So altogether, our total deferments is $500,500, which is why the strike price earlier was deducted from $7,700,000 to $7,199,500, because these are the sections and deferments that will be deducted from the strike price, which is why it is not available to us as cash to closing. It is available in the sense that we are reducing the budget by these line items because we are removing them. With all the finance sources that we have now combined, we have raised $6,026,108, leaving us with an equity balance to be covering $1,173,393. So let's take a look at our recoupment schedule. We have a rent-a-studio deal with A24. So our box office are generating $5 million. Of that, 35% goes to the theater owner. In this case, it's the AMC, Theaters. They're getting 35%, and the producing balance, the share to the producers, would be $3,250,000. A24 charges us 25% of that. That is $812,250, leaving us with a balance of $2,437,500. Now we have to apply the P&A investment that we received in order to create the P&A campaign and raise awareness for the movie. We spend $1 million in P&A. The P&A fee is 20% of that. So we're paying $1,200,000 to the P&A investor, leaving us with $1,237,500 from theatrical distribution. We did a direct-to-consumer placement deal with Amazon Prime. We had downloads and views of 189,897. That happened with a price tag of $9.99 per download, getting us $1,897,071. The Amazon Prime fee on that is 35%, so $663,975 is deducted. There's also some expenses in connection with this release of $5,000, so we are left with $1,228,96 for the direct-to-consumer platform release of our film. We're doing a deal with HBO at 10% of the budget for the film then. That's a TV deal at $770,000. So altogether, our US revenues are $3,235,596 from these three different sections. The international distribution revenues are comprised of our pre-sales of $2,195,000 and our unsold rights at the take level of 3,606,680. Altogether, internationally, we are generating 5,801,680. Of that, we have received a down payment of 439,000 already, leaving us with 5,362,680 in revenues from international distribution. The revenue total, combining international and US distribution exploitation, comes to 8,598,276. So here we are starting our recoupment. We have received total revenues of 8,598,276. We're now deducting our senior loan and the second year interest from those revenues outside the collection account. So the balance that is in the collection account after the loan and the interest have been paid is going to be subject to collection agency fees. So the balance is 6,581,996. The collection agent charges 1% of that, leaving us with 6,516,176 in the collection account. We're then applying all the deferments and the applicable premiums to be paid next in the waterfall, and that leaves us with 5,977,176 in our waterfall as revenues. Next, we're applying the distribution charges for the international sales agent. That is 17.5% of all the international distribution revenues. And then we're also applying the 10% charge that is due for the US deal with HBO. That leaves us with 4,884,882 in the waterfall. Next, we're applying the junior loan and the premium, as well as the equity investment and the premium, leaving us with 2,629,811 as net revenues. We have now arrived at our profit participation section of the recoupment plan. Our net revenues were 2,629,811. We are sharing these net revenues in forms of profit, pro rata pari passu, meaning at the same time. There's no longer a structure like we had earlier in the recoupment plan, where every payment recipient has an exclusive recoupment corridor. Here, everyone shares at the same time. The lead actor gets 20%, the co-producer gets 10%, the director gets 15%, and the equity investor gets 7.62% of the net revenues at the same time. This leaves us, the producer, with the balance of 1,246,019. The equity investor provided us with an investment of 1,170,393. Their profit payments and premium payments give them a total payment of 435,055, which reflects an ROI of 37% on their investment. So the finance plan is something, we have done before, but what the focus of this exercise is, I would like you to see how much collateral is used up by each of the financing entities and financing partners and everyone that has an entitlement in connection with the movie. So when you see our sales estimates on the left, which basically include the take and the ask pricing, and you see the colors marked in there, which is the collateral taken up by the financier or expense recipient, you can see that in the first section, from Canada all the way down to Benelux, we use all that collateral to pay our senior lender. Then all the way down to France, we use collateral to pay the collection agent. All the way down to Germany, we use collateral to pay the deferments. And then we have our distribution expenses going to the sales agent and the talent agent. So all the way from Greece down to Scandinavia, all these collaterals are assigned to be paid to the to cover the distribution expenses. So next, we're going to look at the collateral for the junior lender, and that takes us all the way down to Poland. So all of these territories would be used to pay the junior lender. And then the rest is going to go to the equity investor. And you see that all the territories from Romania down, total Eastern Europe, total Latin America, all the way down to ancillary rights, including already using some of the US revenues to be able to pay the equity back. So what that tells you is that we will have a lot of these territories allocated as collateral to be paying back our financiers. So here in this collateral sheet, I kind of sliced them up so we can see it a little closer. We see the junior lender taking up all the collateral to Poland and the equity investor taking up all the collateral, including Latin America. Here again is the last section of the collateral sheet. Again, I summarized it in the beginning, but I'm breaking it down here so you can see it a little closer. This is basically all the territories going to the equity investor. So every single territory, all the way down to the US, is used up to pay the equity investor. So we are not even able, with our international distribution revenues, to cover the equity investor. We need to dive into the US territory, into US revenues, in order to be able to do that. So we would be missing 166,785 in paying the investor back their investment and premium if we would not have a US release. So it's very important to take a close look at the collateral to make sure you understand that in a situation like this, where a movie on the surface fulfills all the boxes and ticks all the boxes, has all the right assumptions and all the right finance criteria fulfilled, we have to perform a US release that makes sense, which makes this equity investor performance driven, meaning performance contingent. In the ideal world, you don't necessarily want this, but oftentimes you cannot avoid it simply because not every pre-sale sells at the take level. Some sell below. Not every territory sells at the ask level. Some sell only at the take level. So there are situations where movies, when they are finished and being screened, the final movie might not be as good as the movie that was sold based on pre-sales. To avoid performance-related risk, we want to do as many pre-sales as we can, and sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. But I want you to see how much of the collateral is used here in order to fulfill all our financial obligations with this film. You can do this assignment using the same Excel, but adjusting your film with these new assumptions. And you will see a major change, particularly in the US, where we're going to sell the film to Netflix, who buys all US rights for 50% of the budget. So that's one major change. And then you have some other changes here in regards to the budget, the sales estimates, the pre-sales, the senior loan, the junior loan, the deferments, and the removal of crowdfunding. So take a look at it. Feel free to try this assignment and see what the profits for the producer and investor would look like.